Greetings and salutations, folks. I hope everyone is doing well. Welcome back to tonight's early morning or middle of the night bonus. Before we jump on into it, a couple quick links. As many of you may know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. The merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. These audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share this video. Why? Well, because these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to tonight's early morning or middle of the night bonus upload, shall we? Today's first encounter. This took place on Highway 191, northbound between the towns of Monticello and Moab, Utah, late fall of 2010. The month was November. A couple that I know, good friends of mine, were traveling to Salt Lake City early one morning from their small town, Montezuma Creek, Utah. Having left the town in the pre-dawn hours, they found themselves passing a small Mormon town called Monticello, an hour and a half into their trip in the southern Utah high desert area. 20 minutes out of town, they eventually began talking, unfortunately, getting into a heated debate rather quickly. Now, this was no surprise to me since they were always arguing over the most minuscule subjects. This particular argument got a bit more heated than usual. So my friend's wife, who was driving at the time, pulled off to the side of the road to cool off right after passing Highway 191 and Country Road 46 intersection. It was still a bit dark, but the sky was getting brighter. She stayed in the vehicle while my friend stepped out of the truck to grab some fresh air. As he was just about to finish, he took a quick glance at the road behind them and noticed in the distance, a little less than a mile, a figure on the side of the road hobbling. As it walked toward the truck, this surprised him, in that they hadn't passed or seen a person since they left Monticello. As he stood there, he realized it grew in size, meaning that it approached at an incredible speed. Backing up, he yelled at his wife, "Get ready to leave fast." At a dead sprint, he ran to the truck and jumped in the passenger side, only to find himself screaming at the top of his lungs to his girlfriend, instructing her to go, 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 slamming his door. He took one glance back outside his window as the truck peeled off and saw what he can only describe as the most mangy-looking human/animal he had ever seen. He couldn't really tell if it was in rags or just a heavily coated black animal running/hobbling very fast, as it did quickly catch up to the side of his truck. According to him, the way the eyes looked struck him with terror. They were very large, almost bulging out as would a praying mantis's eyeballs, but with pinpoint pupils. Too afraid, he looked away at his wife, who was starting to shake uncontrollably. He took the steering wheel, realizing she also took a glance at this thing, her foot still flooring the accelerator. Trying to calm her down, he maintained a firm grip on the steering wheel for a good 2 minutes, finally looking over his shoulder outside the truck and saw nothing. Half an hour later, they were driving into the city limits of Moab, Utah. I'll never forget this story, or that they stayed in Moab all day until family members came down from Salt Lake to escort them the rest of the way back to the city. All right, really quick. For years, I've been narrating and interviewing people. And you always hear about these creatures keeping speed with the vehicle, or, always showing up in the middle of nowhere. And I really am starting to believe that the majority of these creatures have the same motive: to strike terror in the hearts of who they are, chasing or / messing with. Unfortunately, there are cases where people are almost hunted out of their vehicle. Dr. Nancy Shaw from Georgia. But, you really start to get a perspective on, why do these things do this? Are they just doing it for the pure terror? Maybe they get some sort of, happiness out of causing humans fear. I don't know. I find it interesting that it goes down like this many times. And today's second encounter. What I'm going to tell you has never been told by me to anyone, with the exception of my mom, because I still believe whatever I saw may come and haunt me. 45 years ago, we were living in Poza Rica, Mexico, with my family. I was 4 years old at the time. I remember it was during summer because we had just come back from our vacation. When we came back to the neighborhood, one of the neighbors told my mom that she had lost her baby boy, and that it was the third tragedy around the colony within the month. I recalled my mom telling my dad that night, and she was very scared and wanted us to move as soon as possible. My dad told her that we would. When she was done talking to him, she called me and my brother and gave us instructions to not go outside at dark, no matter what. 2 nights later, we were celebrating my brother's birthday, and after the celebration, my mom cleaned the house and put us to sleep. Sometime that night, I woke up to drink water. I noticed that it was really bright inside the kitchen because the moonlight was very bright coming through the window above the sink. I was too small to get a cup from the cupboard, so I pulled a chair from the dining room table and put it right in front of the sink. At that moment, I happened to look into the neighbor's house across from our home, and I noticed that there was someone or something very big in the front of their door, and it seemed to be holding something. When I got closer to the window to see what it was holding, I realized that whatever it was standing there was much taller than the door. It had pointed ears and no clothing. When I saw its ears, I jumped and my chair made a loud noise, and the thing turned and looked at me, and I saw its face. It looked like a police dog with bright red eyes on 2 legs, and what it was holding was a baby. I jumped off the chair and ran to the room where my baby brother's bed was, and I held him for the entire night. I was so scared I thought whatever I saw was going to come through the door and take us away. The next morning, we went to church, and our neighbor told my parents that her friend across from our house lost her child the night before, and that nobody knew how it happened. When I heard that, I started crying, and my mom asked me what was wrong with me, and I told her what I had seen. She told me that we would be moving sooner and never tell anyone what I saw, and I haven't until now. From then on, I had nightmares once in a while. I see myself as a kid walking and being chased by this beast that I'd seen. Years later, when I was 25, I went to a fair and entered the tent of the fortune teller. She held my hand and told me a few things that were going to happen at the time. Suddenly, she pushed my hand away and told me to go away. When I asked her why, she said that I had a shadow and that sooner or later it was going to find me. It was a very dark, mean thing looking at me. I asked her to help me, but she shook her head. No, baby. He won't hurt you. He would hurt whoever is around you, whoever tries to help you, so please go. Until now, I have had my dark moments when always looking around for any strangers coming toward me. I try to avoid the woods, which the fortune-telling woman told me to do. This is an absolute 100% true experience. Dogman or shapeshifter? What do you guys think? I think kind of just going off of what this person's saying, that there is some sort of black magic involved. But then again, who am I? I'm no expert. It might be a Dogman, but it just doesn't make sense. I really honestly feel like if this thing's taking children and it took 3 in a month and now it took a 4th, I really think there'd have to be some kind of black magic going on there. What do you guys think? Today's third encounter. My nonna, Italian for grandmother, told me this experience when I was a child. It happened to her father, my great-grandfather, when he was a young husband and father living in Italy in 1899. My great-grandfather, Vincenzo, was 28, and my nonna was 6 years old the year this happened. They lived in a mountain town in the province of Matera in southern Italy. The fact the town's name means mountain assembly or settlement in the mountains. In 1899, the mountain settlement was being plagued by creatures from the woods that were thought to be half man, half wolf. The people of the town called these creatures the Luna Lupi, moon wolves, because they were thought to roam the mountainside whenever there was a full moon. My great-grandfather Vincenzo was a devout Christian who did not believe in stories of supernatural creatures. That is, until the night he faced the horror of the creature that the townfolk called Luna Lupi. My grandfather worked in a sawmill about 5 miles from home. He and 4 other men from that town would leave for work when the sun came up, walk 5 miles of a winding path through the woods to that sawmill. For the long trek to work, the men had to carry their lunch in metal lunch boxes. For the after-dark trek home, they carried torches and lanterns to lead the way in the dark. It was all routine for Vincenzo and his fellow workers. They'd been working at this sawmill for many years, and the 5-mile walk was just another part of their grueling day. But unknown to the men when they went to work that morning, what was that following night would be different. This night would change their lives forever, and their tale would be told in fireside chats from that moment on up until present day. Here's my great-grandfather Vincenzo's experience in his own words. I began my walk home from work one night with the other 4 men from town who I worked with. It was dusk when we started our trek home. About a mile into our walk, we stopped to light our torch and lantern because it had grown darker. We continued on our way. 2 miles into the walk, we began to hear an animal howl in the distance. We all knew that there were wolves in the mountains. Wolves never bothered groups of men. They were afraid of us, as we were of them, so we didn't think much of it. Within what seemed like seconds, the howling grew much closer to us, and another couple of seconds, we could hear what sounded like pounding of hooves on the path behind us, along with a now extremely loud and terrifying howl. No time to think now. We all dropped our heavy metal lunchboxes and began running down the path. We all know we had another 3 miles to go before we reached town outside of the woods. We also knew that there was an empty barn up ahead, if we could make it from that far before whatever caught up to us. Fear gripped us. The howls were deafening, and the sound of the pounding hooves or padded feet seemed only feet behind us. We were running for our lives. Even my co-worker, who weighed 250 pounds, kept right up with the rest of us. I was out in front making it for the barn. The howls and the pounding were now resonating in our ears. We all believed that this thing, this creature, whatever it was, would catch us before we reached that barn. But a second later, we were at the barn, and we all clamored to be the first one in. All in, we slammed the old barn door and quickly dropped the board latch down to lock ourselves in. No sooner was that board secured in place, the creature was at the door, pounding, clawing, and howling. We stood shaking and covering our ears because the howls were so persistent and unending. 1 second, the creature would be pounding and clawing at the door, and the next second, it would be in the back of the huge barn pounding and clawing. No animal could move that fast. It was racing around and around outside the barn, continuing to pound and claw, seemingly looking for a way in. We even heard the creature on the roof. It was relentless, pounding, clawing, and howling. It went on for hours. At one point, the creature found a separation in the wooden slats of the barn wall. It was able to work its claw through just far enough for us to see the black claws that were at least 4 inches in length. We stood, unmoving, silent, praying for this creature to go away. But it ran around the barn, pounding, clawing, and howling all night long until the sun came up. And then everything went quiet. We were still too afraid to move a muscle. Eventually, though, we started peeking through the slats of the barn wall to see if we could see anything out there. After looking outside for over an hour after the sun came up, we finally cracked the door open. There was no creatures out there anymore. But what we did see horrified us. There were claw marks and blood covering the entire barn. We could even see splatters of blood on the ground. Also, we saw hoof prints all around the barn, leading away from the barn. We also noticed something very strange. The hoof prints went as far as the path before turning into what appeared to be barefoot human prints. This particular sight was the most unnerving for us all, who spent the night trapped in the barn. There is nothing more to say about that night. The other 4 men and I walked back home in silence. We were in shock. I never dreamed that creatures like this existed. I thought they only existed in stories in the minds of people with vivid imaginations. I was wrong. We reported the incident to our town officials. Apparently, they had other reports as well, though none as frightening as ours. Ours was the closest encounter with one of these unknown creatures. The town officials took it very seriously, though, and began. Being a devoted religious community, it was feared that a demon may be in the midst. The Pope was summoned, and he traveled to our town to bless the town, the surrounding woods and the mountain countryside. Bless this town, the woods, and the countryside, so that we may remain free from the plague of evil that threatens us all. And that was my grandfather, or my great-grandfather, Vincenzo's terrifying experience. Tonight's 4th encounter. My experience took place at around 11:30 p.m. November 4th, 2009. I worked for the local 73 toll road in Newport Beach, California, and lately we've had some construction on the surrounding roads for the past few months. I'm a third shift manager, 2 p.m. to 11 p.m., and every night driving home I take the same exact route at pretty much the same time every night. On this night I was coming off the exit for the 133 road connector, and I'll never forget what I saw. While stopped at the stoplight, I saw a group of 3 large 4-legged creatures dash out from the trees along the road. I started second-guessing myself and trying to convince myself that I'm seeing things. I made a left turn at the light, and while the speed limit was still 40 at this part, I looked up and almost pissed my pants. Those creatures were running upright. The wolves, which seemed to be the most logical guess, were at least 7 feet tall and looked like they easily weighed 300 pounds each. They had snouts and mouths that almost could be expressive, being able to smile and frown. The fur was dark, although there wasn't enough light to tell exactly what color, brown or dark brown or black. My car being a 6-cylinder, it could get going if need be. I was already going 45, and the giant wolves were keeping up with ease. I then literally put the pedal to the metal and sped up to 70. I was sweating profusely and having a panic attack. As I sped to 70, the wolves stopped following me, considering I must have been 70 miles per hour. I was already going 45 and the giant wolves were keeping up with ease. I then literally put the pedal to the metal and sped up to 70. I was sweating profusely and having a panic attack. As I sped to 70, the wolves stopped following me, considering I must I was about to enter high traffic part of the road. The wolf in front seemed to stop on a dime and watch me drive off. I didn't hear any howls or anything after that sighting. I proceeded home as fast as possible. I told my girlfriend what I saw, and she deemed my imagination as running wild. I also told my coworkers the next day, following the sighting, but nobody believes me to this day. I know I'm not crazy. I know what I saw. I still have been taking that same route home every night, and have not had another run-in with one of these things. Who knows what it actually was, but all I know is I do not want to run into one of those things ever again. Thank you for letting me share. This is kind of an experience, but I'm not going to call it the fifth part because, well, it's an actual news article that I found, and I think you guys may like it. Pennsylvania, Dixonville, mine inspector Glenn E. Berger reported in 1944 to his superiors that Dixonville mine disaster, which killed 15 men, was not the result of a cave-in, but rather an attack by an underground creatures capable of manipulating the earth, partial cave-ins, whose domain the miners had apparently penetrated. Most of the dead miners were not injured by falling rocks, but showed signs of large claw marks. Others were missing. One survivor spoke of seeing a vicious humanoid creature that was not of this world within an ancient passage that the miners had broke into. The creature somehow created the cave-in, blocking himself and the other inspector, who closed his eyes when he felt the creature's hot breath on his neck. From the main passage until another rescue party began to dig through the collapsed, scaring the creatures away. The source of this article was Stony Brookfield in News Extra, July 14th, 1974. So that kind of falls into what we've been talking about lately, about Dulce and these dumbs and these dog creatures, these walking wolves, dogmen, whatever you want to call them. Are they some ancient race? Are they some sort of genetically modified creature that have been here for thousands of years? Who knows? Are they coming through portals? I don't know. My guess is as good as yours. But these things are dangerous, and it's just crazy how much a little article like that can shine a brighter light on things that we've been talking about for a long time now. Tonight's fifth encounter. I've been threatened by law enforcement and political leaders in our area for my continued mention of creatures. I own a small plot of land in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, Calhoun County, West Virginia. We've got over 60 acres. It's been in my family for generations. I have an experience to tell you about my brother and his friends that happened 3 years ago. My brother didn't believe me about not crossing into the Hairy People's Valley. He's ex-military. They decided to hunt and camp right on the line where you do not cross. They camped too close to these creatures. Well, they found out the hard way what these beasts mean business. They woke up at 3 a.m. hearing their 2 large pit bulls being shredded to pieces. They came home crying for all of us to go with them and wipe out the whole family of these monsters. I explained to him that we've seen at least 30 of them going into caves where they live. I know if we started a war with these creatures, we would lose. They can hide in these miles of caves, then come out and come after whoever they want to, whenever they want to. You will receive no help from the government or the police. It's just an unwritten law for some reason, and I don't know why, but I know that it's true. Please share my experience. People need to know that they are not only fighting these monsters, but for some reason we are fighting the very people who are supposed to keep us safe. I'm sure I'll catch hell by the local law enforcement, but I'm beyond giving a damn. I'm ready to speak up and start talking about these dangerous, hairy creatures. Thank you. Tonight's final encounter is a subscriber-submitted experience. Jeff, I'd like to share with you exactly what happened before, during, and after my involvement in an incident that transpired in January of 2018. It all started from my unit on January overseas deployment 3 weeks earlier, and we were enjoying some much-deserved R&R. When the call came, we were immediately to regroup at our primary operation base for an emergency action. We all assumed some vital intel had come in concerning an HVT, high-value target, somewhere in a foreign theater. Looking back now, I wish that was the case. Unfortunately, it was not. We were given a brief summary of the situation, and we were told we would be given all the particulars once we reached our FOB, Forward Operating Base, which turned out to be the Sierra Nevada mountains. We grabbed our gear, boarded a plane, and departed immediately. None of us knew exactly what kind of situation we were dropping into, but it quickly became apparent when we reached the FOB that several units from various branches had been mobilized in short order. As we stood in the cluttering briefing room, none of us, neither my unit nor the others, were prepared for what we were about to hear. We were informed that 3 groups specialized in advanced mountain warfare had been running a training drill in the general vicinity when one of the teams radioed that they could hear automatic weapon fire from one of the group's last known positions. A helo was soon dispatched to see what was going on. They were not cleared for any kind of expenditure of ammunition that the other group had reported. After an extensive air search, the helo failed to make contact with the group. It was decided that the second group would abandon their training mission and search for the missing group. An aerial search and rescue operation would commence immediately. The other 2 groups reported finding brass all over the group's base camp, large amounts of blood, and several mutilated bodies, all corroborated by the search and rescue team sent to retrieve the remains. It was decided that the other 2 teams would track the remaining members of the group, one that night. Both teams radioed in saying something was probing their lines and acting aggressively. They made special mention in their transmissions to say they did not believe it to be human. During the night, 3 more individuals went missing without a trace. It was decided to send helos to pull them out. All 38 remaining members of the groups 3 and 4 were in another room prepared to answer any questions we may have. We spoke with them at length, plotted out the first group's last known position, and planned our movements very carefully. The 6 units that had been brought in would be dropped at various places throughout the range. My unit would be dropped right at the group's base camp and would track them with assistance of another unit, while 2 units would be job 4 and advance our position and work their way back to us. 2 other teams would investigate possible secure positions the group could have made their way to. The minute we were on the ground, we all knew this was no longer a rescue but a recovery mission, or so we thought. As we moved deeper into the Sierra Nevada mountain range, we lost all trace of the first group, just as the other 2 groups had. Our first night out there, we were met with the most god-awful noises, screams, and growls. To be exact, we had Blackhawks searching for the source of the sounds as we crept deeper and deeper into the mountains. The only words spoken were between radio operators of 6 teams and the command at the base of the mountain. For 48 hours we searched for a lost group, never finding any trace of them. On the 3rd night, the 2 teams were sent to investigate possible secured positions the group could have gone to. We were given direct orders to find them, the missing group, and kill whatever was taking us out. The 2 teams sent ahead of us were ordered to hunker down and wait for the rest of us to regroup. Before going to look for the missing men, 9 hours later, all 6 teams made their way out the northwest, where it was believed the 2 men went missing. None of us knew exactly what we were going to face. The entire range had an eerie quiet about it, both day and night. We all had the feeling we were being watched, yet we could find nothing when we were looking. We knew we weren't so much the hunter as the hunted. Whatever was out there with us knew its terrain. It toyed with us for several hours, going so far as to let loose almost what sounded like a hideous laugh. We caught our first break. One of the other teams came across several shredded MRE packs that were torn to pieces, and we assumed were the remains of a human thigh. For some inexplicable reason, this thing had left a trail leading to a small ravine. We knew it wanted us to follow it, and knew it had eyes on us. We split up into 4 teams. 2 of us would follow the bait while the other 2 would attempt to outflank it. We reached the start of the ravine just after sunset and waited, not daring to walk blindly into this thing's ambush. As darkness claimed the entire range, the unit attached to my unit opened up on something creeping around our left flank. We quickly spread out and fired random single shots into the forest, pushing it right into our other units waiting to catch this thing. In a classic pincer maneuver, with our kill box set, we moved in only to find ourselves face to face with what I can only describe as, I don't even know, a monster from hell. This thing stood at least 10 feet, maybe 12 feet tall, and seemed to be as wide as a tank. Even with us going at it with everything we had, this thing fought back ferociously, killing an additional 4 men before finally going down. We didn't let up. We put our 203s to work launching enough HPs to melt the damn sun. Once we reported back the thing was dead, 2 Blackhawks packed with guys in biosuits showed up and took possession of what remains were left. We were all picked up and flown back to the FOB. Once there, we were given specific orders never to discuss what happened and return to our individual commands. None of the guys in my unit has gotten much sleep since then. Truth be told, we take hunting terrorists over this thing any day of the week. During my 18 plus years in my military career, I've seen some strange things, but this was by far the strangest and most deadliest.
And there you have it, folks. I hope you all enjoyed this early morning, middle of the night bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to really thank you all for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that helps the channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please, everyone, stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.